Story 1. Top takeaways for me, Kamala. I never asked if a victim was a Republican or Democrat. I asked if he was okay. Trump, the leader of the Taliban, his name was Abdul. I showed Abdul a picture of his house. He asked, "Why do you have a picture of my house?" I said, "You know why." Story 2. I thought for sure Harris wanted to call him a foul name, but instead, he just inserted a significant pause and said, "Former president." I believe the insult was implied. Story 3. Harris argued that Trump could be manipulated by other world leaders and then demonstrated as much by manipulating him into baited attacks all evening long. He was like a cat chasing a laser pointer. Story 4. Oh my goodness, when she criticized his rallies and called them boring, I knew we were going off the rails, and sure enough, that led to talk of World War III and people eating cats and dogs in Ohio. Absolutely wild, man. Story 5. Clearly, the US electorate is deeply troubled for this to be such a close race. No politician will say it because it's completely untenable to call out voters for their flaws, but that's the real story here. Allowing Donald Trump to still be around and even close in this race is a major embarrassment for American voters. God help us all. Story 6. The path to winning this debate for Donald Trump was to just play the hits. Every person in America knows everything they could possibly know about him. Run the ball, as you will. Instead, he said Democrats want to legalize infanticide and that immigrants were eating pets. An amazing way to walk right into the weird rake over and over like an orange, somehow more bloodthirsty sideshow Bob. Story 7. Kamala came across as much more moderate than I think many would have expected. I think she knows that liberal voters will vote for their cat before they vote for Trump, assuming their cat has not been eaten, so instead, she is speaking towards Republicans who could live with her policies enough that it would be preferable to Trump. Story 8. An interesting but certainly not surprising note is that he would not look at her the entire time. Meanwhile, not only would Harris look at him, but she was also speaking directly to him at some points. He's scared, and he should be. Story 9. My first thought was, man, the memeosphere is going to be hot this week. I was in disbelief the whole time. Trump refuses to establish the bottom of the barrel and instead continues to dig. It's impressive, really. I didn't know a person could actually achieve his level of incompetence, callousness, and narcissism. Harris was poised, composed, dignified, and spoke eloquently. No notes. I think she absolutely clobbered him when he wasn't busy clobbering himself. Story 10. If Trump's rambling and looking old wasn't enough, Kamala baited him and looked young. Trump could not look in her direction all night. Kamala made him give her a handshake. It is clear who was in control. He lost. Story 11. A few things. 1. How can you say a medical plan is bad, but 9 years later have a concept of a plan? If it's so bad, it should be easy to fix. 2. 21 million people monthly would equate to over 1 billion people over a 4-year term. The United States population is below 350 million. Who did that math? Only a guy who filed for bankruptcy 6 times. 3. Can I get some of that money Iran is spreading around? 4. When did North Atlantic Treaty Organization become a for-profit organization? North Atlantic Treaty Organization does not pay the United States anything. 5. Can I get some of that American military we're giving away? I'd love an F-22, please. 6. Imagine not being aligned with your vice president. 7. I was being sarcastic. If post 9 months abortions are happening, I got a few coworkers. Story 12. I noticed that Trump refused to say that he wanted Ukraine to win the war. The moderator gave him a couple of chances to say it, and he completely avoided saying it. He would only say that he would end the war. Story 13. Please remember, former President Trump's fans are reading and watching their own news services right now, and they are thrilled. President Trump won bigly. They will all vote. Every Democrat needs to vote. Every single one of us. Story 14. I don't understand how anyone can watch Trump speak and not think he's a complete narcissist, incoherent, and a buffoon. He always speaks in ridiculous absolutes. Politics aside, just his character is enough to make one feel sick. I'm glad that Kamala is trying to focus on the future, and I think this was a slam dunk for her. However, it's unsettling that the election will likely be so close. Edit. I loved Kamala telling him he got fired by 81 million people. You know that hit hard. Story 15. The key points that remained after everything was discussed. Ideas of a plan. Sure, January. Will it be ready in 2 weeks? Eating cats and dogs. Clearly, when he is not golfing, he spends all his time with the extremists online. Abortions at 9 months. That is called murder, my friend, and is already very illegal. An angry, sour-looking man who cannot stop repeating his grievances. Feels like that old man down the street you avoid at all costs because he does not make sense and will not stop talking. Story 16. I thought Trump had the edge for about 5 to 10 minutes. He was calm and gave straight answers. This is all relative, obviously. But as soon as Harris baited him with the rallies, he went off the rails and became a babbling mess. It's actually quite frightening that the potential leader of the free world was so easily triggered. His ego is so very fragile. Story 17. My mom, a huge conspiracy theorist, called me up and said, "Wow, Kamala did really well. Whoever prepped her for this should get a huge bonus." That says a lot because before this, she called me nonstop, talking negatively about her. Fox News plays on repeat at her house. She ended with, "I guess if Kamala wins, I won't feel as bad as I thought I would." Story 18. Trump said a falsehood. Then everyone acknowledged it was false. Then Trump said, "No, it's true because I saw it on TV." It's bizarre that tens of millions of Americans are okay with this. Story 19. It's so hard for me to take anyone seriously who can watch that debate and support Trump. I'm not saying you had to be impressed with Harris, but I don't understand how you can support Trump. Story 20. Harris appeared as someone eager to participate, prepared to speak, and knew exactly how to challenge Trump. Trump seemed annoyed to be there, frequently straying from the script and becoming provoked into confusion. He appeared as a bitter, angry elderly man who constantly confused the roles of the president and the vice president. Story 21. I'm so tired of pretending that being a Trump fan is a valid or respectable position. I don't care if you dislike Harris or are a staunch conservative, but saying you think Trump is a real option to be president automatically disqualifies you from being considered a serious person. Story 22. My favorite part was Trump attacking Harris for not getting things done that she promised, while promising to get things done that he didn't do when he was president of the United States. Story 23. Just once I want a politician to say, if a doctor says their patient is going to be harmed without a 3rd trimester abortion, I think we should listen to their expert opinion because I'm not a doctor. Story 24. He tries to point out things she hasn't done as vice president when he's literally been president before. He says if they can come up with something better than the Affordable Care Act, then they will implement it. So can he admit that it's been a positive thing? Why couldn't he and his team come up with something better when he has, in fact, been president before? Story 25. Saturday Night Live skit should be playing Trump's rambling response, and then Maya Rudolph giving the replies we wish Kamala Harris could make. They're aborting babies at 6 months after birth. Can we abort babies at 78 years after birth? Immigration blah blah. If we didn't allow immigrants into our country, where would you have found your wives? Story 26. I can't imagine what kind of person hasn't made up their mind by now, who is honestly at risk of being persuaded by the other side, depending on how it goes. Story 27. Never in my life did I think I would hear a presidential candidate rant about immigrants eating dogs and cats, and then Democrats executing babies after they are born. Story 28. This isn't exclusive to the Harris/Trump debate, but to presidential debates in general. It drives me insane that politicians are seemingly allergic to answering yes or no questions. Edit. Well, this blew up. Obviously, yes/no questions aren't really helpful in a debate. Policies are nuanced and often require a substantial amount of information to not only form an opinion but also explain why that opinion is superior to an opponent's. It's the empty, off-topic, and unproductive responses in place of yes or no that I have an issue with. Edit 2. While I'm here, do away with time constraints completely. The debate should go on until the moderators think a topic has been sufficiently answered by both candidates. I don't see the point in having a debate if no new or clarifying information has been discussed. I didn't learn a single new thing about either Harris or Trump tonight. In addition to the candidates, bring in experts and potential cabinet members to expound on the campaign's plan. I don't care if it's 8 hours long. Let's actually have a discussion instead of a 90-minute finger-pointing session. Story 29. For all his lies, Trump is actually telling the truth about babies dying after birth, sadly. Kamala straight up killed a baby live on stage, 78 years after its birth. Tonight. Story 30. I'm a Canadian, so my opinion doesn't mean anything, but I have no idea how anyone could vote for Donald Trump at this point. He seems like a downright awful person at his core. Story 31. Trump started off relatively composed, but began to lose his composure when Harris triggered him with facts he is unable to accept. He offered nothing of substance, only wild or baseless claims trying to disparage everyone but himself. He referenced Viktor Orban as a character witness, which was a terrible move. He refused to support a Ukrainian victory. He tried to hammer Harris on immigration and the economy but came off as repetitive and desperate. Again, not offering anything of substance, but using superlatives without supporting facts to claim he would be so much better and Harris is so bad. Harris did what she needed to do. She riled up Trump, set up a stark contrast, and reminded voters of how chaotic and undemocratic Trump's presidency and loss were. She had actual policy plans she could speak clearly and factually about, not just concepts of a plan. I wasn't terribly impressed by her answers about climate change, though she at least gave an answer, or the Afghanistan withdrawal. She also seemed stronger and more confident than Trump, minus a couple of times when she tried talking over Trump, giving him an opportunity to turn it back on her. Overall, Harris won. I think it will influence some undecided voters. I don't think there will be another debate. Story 32. I saw a revenge-obsessed madman screaming about immigrants eating people's pets, doctors executing babies after birth, and bragging about being friends with dictators and autocrats. The other person was very poised, intelligent, and seemed like they actually care about the American people moving forward. Story 33. It did nothing to change my mind that Trump is a raving lunatic who should not be permitted to go on a walking tour of the White House, let alone being president, and I will be voting blue on Election Day. Story 34. Why is he allowed to dodge every question and insist on having the last word every time, talking nonsense, may I add? But they want to cut her off when she is on topic and then allow him to ramble on further? What the heck? Story 35. The moderator had to remind him it is illegal in all of America to end the life of a baby following his inappropriate comments. I am so ashamed of Republicans, so deeply ashamed of anyone who can still support his actions. Story 36. Harris did exactly what she needed to. She talked about her policies and attacked Trump to the point where he lost his cool. He didn't get to talk about any plans because of that. You can tell it was bad for Trump because Republicans are attacking moderators for fact-checking, not trying to say Trump did well. Meanwhile, pretty much everyone in the middle and on the left are praising Kamala. Story 37. All she had to do was say that his rallies are boring, and he got totally off message and distracted. For all his wannabe strongman bravado, she showed how easy it is to manipulate him. Story 38. I'm not a Kamala Harris fan by any means, but Trump supporters calling Democrats communists, while they're openly supporting a fascist dictator, is literally mind-blowing to me.